Welcome to your English learning journey with. In this video, we will be covering Chapter 5, titled, The Farmer and the Well, from the Grade 8 English textbook. This is Part 5 of the chapter, where we will go through the solved exercises from pages 103 to 107. So, get your textbook ready and follow along as we solve each question step by step. Let's begin.
The Farmer and the Well. One day, a farmer was looking for a water source for his farm, when he bought a well from his neighbor. The neighbor, however, was cunning. The next day, as the farmer came to draw water from his well, the neighbor refused to let him take any water. When the farmer asked why, the neighbor replied, "I sold you the well, not the water," and walked away. Distraught, the farmer went to the emperor to ask for justice. He explained what had happened. The emperor called on Birbal, one of his 9, and wisest, courtiers. Birbal proceeded to question the neighbor, "Why don't you let the farmer take water from the well? You did sell the well to the farmer." The neighbor replied, "Birbal, I did sell the well to the farmer but not the water within it. He has no right to draw water from the well." Birbal said, "Look, since you sold the well, you have no right to keep the water in the farmer's well. Either you pay rent to the farmer, or take it out immediately." Realizing that his scheme had failed, the neighbor apologized and went home.
Now, let's move on to the vocabulary section, on page 104. In this exercise, we are asked to find the meanings of the words given in the box using a dictionary. After that, we will use those words to complete the sentences that follow. I will guide you through each word, explain its meaning, and show you how to use it correctly in a sentence. Let's begin with the first word. Now, let's go through the answers to the vocabulary exercise. Distraught, the farmer went to the emperor to ask for justice. He explained what had happened. In this sentence, the word distraught means deeply upset or troubled. The farmer was very upset because of the unfair situation. A farmer was looking for a water source for his farm when he bought a well from his cunning. Here, the word cunning means clever in a dishonest or tricky way. The neighbor was not being honest. The emperor called on Birbal, one of his 9, and wisest. The correct word here is wisest, which refers to someone who is very intelligent and shows good judgment. Birbal was known for his wisdom. Realizing that his scheme had failed, the neighbor apologized and went home. In this sentence, the word scheme refers to a clever and often dishonest plan. The neighbor's plan did not work. Let's move on to the next section. Let's now move on to the comprehension checkpoint on page 104. We'll read each question carefully and go over the answers with explanation. Question 1. What is the main gist of the story? Answer. The story is about an honest farmer, who buys a well but is tricked by his dishonest neighbor, who claims the water is not included. The farmer asks the emperor for help. Birbal uses his wisdom to give a fair solution, and teaches the neighbor a lesson. Now let's look at the next question. Question 2. Describe the characters in the story and add your personal observations about each one of the characters. Pardo, the farmer. Answer. The farmer is a simple and honest man, who needed water for his land. He trusted his neighbor and well, SHOWIN_G that he is responsible. When he was treated unfairly, he calmly went to the emperor for justice. He did not fight, but used the right way to solve the problem. We'll talk about the other characters in the next part. Let's continue with the remaining characters from question to B. Neighbor. Answer. The neighbor is a dishonest and cunning person. He tried to trick the farmer by saying that he only sold the well and not the water inside it. He wanted to cheat the farmer, but he failed. In the end, he felt sorry for his wrong actions. Emperor. Answer. The emperor is a just and wise ruler. He listens to the problems of his people and wants to help them. When the farmer came to him, he immediately called Birbal to solve the issue, showing that he values justice and fairness for all. Birbal. Answer. Birbal is the wisest courtier of the emperor. He is clever, intelligent, and knows how to solve problems using logic. He quickly found a smart way to handle the situation. He made the neighbor realize his mistake without being rude or harsh. Let's now continue. Question 3. What do you think is the reason for the farmer in seeking justice from the emperor? Answer. The farmer went to the emperor because he was treated unfairly by the neighbor. The neighbor refused to let him use the water from the well even though he had paid for it. The farmer wanted someone powerful to help him get what was rightfully his. Question 4. What did the emperor do to solve the problem of the farmer? Answer. The emperor listened to the farmer's problem and asked Birbal to help. Birbal used his wisdom and said that if the neighbor sold the well, he had no right to keep the water. He cleverly solved the issue and made the neighbor admit his mistake. Question 5. If you were the farmer, how will you resolve this problem? Answer. If I were the farmer, I would first try to talk with the neighbor and explain the deal. If he still refused, I would go to a wise person or authority, like the emperor, to help solve the problem in a fair and peaceful way. Now let's go through all the answers. Statement A. I sold you the well, not the water. This was said by the neighbor, as he tried to trick the farmer after selling the well. Statement B. Why don't you let the farmer take water from the well? This line was spoken by Birbal, questioning the neighbor's unfair behavior. Statement C. You did sell the well to the farmer. Again, this was asked by Birbal, confirming the details before giving a solution. Statement D. This was the neighbor, repeating his excuse to avoid responsibility. Statement E. Also spoken by the neighbor, trying to make his trick sound reasonable. Statement F. Look, since you sold the well, you have no right to keep the water. This was said by Birbal, using his logic to correct the situation. Statement G. Either you pay rent to the farmer, or take it out immediately. And finally, this strong and clever line was spoken by Birbal, offering a fair solution that forced the neighbor to admit his mistake. Now, let's begin the grammar section, on page 105. In this exercise, we are asked to rewrite the following sentences in the passive voice. Passive voice means that the focus of the sentence shifts from who is doing the action to what is being done. Let's look at each sentence one by one and convert it correctly into the passive form. Here we go. Let's now look at the answers. Sentence 1. Active voice. The farmer asked the neighbor and walked away. Passive voice. The neighbor was asked by the farmer, and he walked away. Here, the focus shifts to the neighbor who received the action. Sentence 2. Active voice. He explained the situation to the emperor. Passive voice. The situation was explained to the emperor by him. Sentence 3. Active voice. Birbal proceeded to question the neighbor. Passive voice. The neighbor was questioned by Birbal. Sentence 4. Active voice. The neighbor sold the well to the farmer. Passive voice. The well was sold to the farmer by the neighbor. Sentence 5. Active voice. The farmer took from the well. Passive voice. Water was taken from the well by the farmer. Let's now move on to the next section of the lesson. Let's move on to the next grammar activity, on page 106. In this exercise, we need to read each sentence carefully and decide whether it is written in the active voice or the passive voice. Remember, a sentence is in active voice when the subject does the action. It is in passive voice when the subject receives the action. Let's go through this one by one and identify the voice used in each. Let's now check the answers for the active or passive voice exercise on page 106. For each sentence, we'll identify whether it's an active or passive voice, and we'll also name the doer of the action. Sentence A. The farmer feeds his dog. This sentence is in active voice. The doer is the farmer, who is doing the action, feeding. Sentence B. Family went to the beach. This is also in active voice. The doer is the family, who is performing the action of going. Sentence C. The letter was written by the emperor. This sentence is in passive voice. The action is being received by the letter, and the doer is the emperor. Sentence D. The farmer was cheated by the neighbor. This is in passive voice. The doer is the neighbor, while the farmer is the one affected by the action. So, remember, active voice focuses on who is doing the action, while passive voice highlights who or what is receiving the action. Let's continue to the next part of the lesson. Let's now complete the last few sentences in this exercise. Sentence C. The problem was solved. This sentence is in passive voice. The action is being received by the problem, and the doer is unknown. We don't know who solved it. Sentence F. The man risked his life. This is in active voice. The doer is the man, who is clearly performing the action. Sentence G. The well was taken by the farmer. This sentence is in passive voice. The doer is the farmer, and the action is being done to the well. That wraps up the active and passive voice section. Well done if you got them all right. Let's move on to the next part of the lesson. Just let me know what's next on page 107, or beyond. Let's now move on to the next activity. Cross out unnecessary information. In this exercise, we read each sentence carefully and look for any phrase that does not add important meaning to the sentence. If it's just extra detail that can be removed without changing the main idea, we cross it out. These extra parts are often called non-essential phrases. Let's take each sentence together and identify which part, if any, can be removed. Let's now go through the exercise titled, Cross out unnecessary information. Sentence A. English is spoken in Pakistan by Pakistanis. We can cross out by Pakistanis. Revised sentence. English is spoken in Pakistan. The extra phrase is obvious and doesn't add anything new. Sentence B. This house was built by my father. No change is needed. The phrase by my father is important. It tells us who built the house. Sentence C. Cricket is a game that is played by two teams of 11 players. We can cross out that is played by two teams of 11 players. Revised sentence. Cricket is a game. The extra part gives detail, but it's not essential to understand what cricket's. Sentence D. This car isn't being used by anyone. No change is needed. The phrase by anyone is important. It explains the full situation. Sentence E. This mobile was made in China by Chinese workers. We can cross out by Chinese workers. Revised sentence. This mobile was made in China. Again, the phrase isn't necessary. Let's now go through the final set of sentences for this activity. Sentence F. The window was broken by Tony. No change needed. The phrase by Tony is important. It tells us exactly who did it. Sentence G. A new school is being built by builders. We can cross out by builders. Revised sentence. A new school is being built. The fact that are building it is already understood. Sentence H. Gold is found in Nigeria by people. We can cross out by people. Revised sentence. Gold is found in Nigeria. It's clear that people find it, so the extra phrase isn't needed. Sentence I. A lot of oil is used by rich Western countries. No change needed. This phrase by rich countries is meaningful and gives specific information. Sentence J. Stamps are sold in the post office by workers. We can cross out by workers. Revised sentence. Stamps are sold in the post office. It's already clear that workers do this, so the extra part can be removed. And that brings us to the end of this grammar task. Now, let's begin the writing activity on page 107. In this exercise, we are asked to create our own short story that includes a moral lesson. Before writing, we'll complete a planning table to help us organize our ideas. Let's go through the story elements one by one. So grab your notebooks and let's start this interesting activity. Before we begin writing our story, it's important to first organize our thoughts using a story planning table. This helps us clearly understand what will happen in the beginning, middle, and end of the story. Let's now go through the completed planning table together. The main characters in the story are a young boy named Ollie and an old man. The setting is a small village in Pakistan that shows how Ollie learns the importance of helping others and respecting elders. At the beginning of the story, Ollie is always busy with his phone and refuses to help at home. In the middle, he sees an old man struggling to carry heavy bags, and something inside him changes. By the end, after helping the man, Ollie feels true happiness and learns the joy that comes from kindness. This planning table gives us a clear and simple outline of the story we're about to write. Now that the plan is ready, let's move on to writing the full story. Let's now read the story based on our planning from the previous activity. Ollie was a smart boy living in a quiet village. He loved playing games on his phone and never paid attention to what was happening around him. His parents often asked him to help around the house, but he would always say, "I'm too busy," and continue playing. One hot afternoon, Ollie was walking when he saw an old man struggling to carry two heavy bags. Many people passed by without offering help. At first, Ollie also walked past, but suddenly he remembered something his teacher had once said, "Kindness always returns." Feeling a little guilty, Ollie turned back and offered to help the old man. The man smiled and thanked him. Ollie carried the heavy bag all the way to the man's small home. There, the man gave Ollie a glass of cold water and many kind words. He blessed Ollie, saying, "You made my day easier, young boy. We will continue from the next page." Let's continue and finish the story. Feeling a little guilty, Ollie turned back and offered to help the old man. The man smiled and thanked him warmly. Ollie carried the heavy bags all the way to the man's small home. When they arrived, the man gave Ollie a glass of cold water and many kind words. He blessed Ollie, saying, "You made my day easier, young boy." In that, Ollie felt something new in his heart, true happiness. From that day onward, he began helping his parents more and started respecting the elders in his village. He also encouraged his friends to be kind and helpful, just as he had learned. Soon, Ollie found out that the old man was actually a retired school teacher. The man began telling him wise stories and valuable life lessons. They became friends, and Ollie started visiting him often to learn and help whenever he could. Moral of the story: helping others and respecting elders brings true happiness. I hope you found this video helpful and easy to understand. If you learned something new today, don't forget to like the video, share it with your classmates, subscribe to my channel for more educational content. See you in the next lesson.